If you've taken a class with me, you probably know I'm obsessed with Alma Thomas's artwork. This is Alma Thomas, who was an art teacher much of her life and didn't see art world success until when she retired and in her late 60s and had her first show, I think, at the Whitney at something like 77, which is amazing and inspiring and hopeful. um, but this, we're going to look at some of the work she did around the moon landing. Here's a quote from her, and these are some pieces in response to the moon landing and and being televised all over the world. Today, not only can our great scientists send astronauts to and from the moon to photograph its surface and bring back samples of rocks and other materials, but through the medium of color television, all can actually see and experience the thrill of these adventures. These phenomena set my creativity in motion. And her response is this amazing, iconic, um, in my opinion, one of the greatest collections done by an American artist of works responding to um, us getting to the moon and envisioning what the astronauts saw, and kind of responding to what was seen on television, um, and just the remarkable. And we'll talk for tonight in the class about the techniques she used, the strategies, and how kind of genius her paint application was. But for right now, let's just talk about the fact that the cosmos has often inspired people from way back to look up and kind of envision and imagine. And so tonight, when we are painting, we are going to both be using Alma Thomas's techniques, but we're also going to be thinking about outer space. This is one of my favorite painters of this genre, who created these kind of just amazing depictions of outer space and captured his fascination with it. I can't remember what years these were painted. I'll get back to you on that. But isn't that perfect? This is perfect artwork, I think. Kandinsky, experimented with it too. But what the technique she used, let's talk about just briefly, sorry. The technique she used is very similar to pointillism. It was called divisionism, where rather than blending colors together, you're applying individual dots of hue, strategically, and kind of playing with the interaction of color, like we've talked about with Joseph Albers before. So tonight we're going to be it's going to be about brushwork. Paul Signac also, I think of when I think of Alma Thomas. It's going to be very relaxing, by the way, because we're going to be making marks very thoughtfully with individual bits of color, and it's going to become all about our brush stroke and all about being really strategic and smart, like Alma Thomas was, about what color goes next to what color. I think of Paul Klee too when I think of this approach. He also was often experimenting with this idea of color next to color, neutral next to vibrant, which we will get into too later in the video, because that was also one of the things that makes an Alma Thomas painting Alma Thomas. I also think of Helen Frankenthaler, again, putting dark next to light, saturated next to desaturated to create a sense of motion, as if her paintings always feel like they're pools of water, floating around, or oil on top of water in the street. Like, there's a sense of motion that Alma Thomas's work also has, based on color relationships. Sam Gilliam, I think they might have both been actually considered in the same school. I think it was called the Washington School, but again, the similarities in his work, as far as the strategy of kind of opaque versus thin, saturated versus neutral, and how this resulted. And he often also kind of was a pointed painter. Then there's people like Seurat who are looking at the cosmos in different ways. And she does these massive installations. This might be a painting, though. I think this is. But the installations are creating the cosmos and space. Maybe you'll be inspired by Seurat's sculptures to make a painting in that spirit. Yaya Cosma has done one that I thought I would drop in here just because I think it's a good example of, pattern in the cosmos and scale. So what it makes an Alma Thomas painting an Alma Thomas painting? She used saturation, so she'd put a vibrant color next to a dull one often to create a great energy between them and sense of vibrations, which allows the painting to have movement. We'll look at that. Dark and light, she would strategically place dark and light. See how this feels like ripples, like you just dropped a stone in the water? There's a movement flowing out to the edges of the painting. Hypnotic almost, really, right? It feels like it's drawing you in, and that's thanks to all of that. And again, the use of expressive brush marks. So when we do it, we're going to be doing very expressive brush marks, and they're going to be really tightly packed in there, allowing some color if you decide to do an under painting to come through, or the canvas or whatever, but it's very tightly packed. It's going to be very relaxing to do this painting, because once we get it all laid out, it'll just become a matter of executing those marks. And again, the source of inspiration is a huge part. She did many things of nature, but she also did this, like, look at the names: Apollo 12 Splashdown, this is called Blast Off. And here's a sketch for Blast Off that I thought, we're going to do a sketch first so that when you go to the canvas to do the marks, you can just relax. Mars Dust. And then here's a sketch and this is Launchpad, and here's a sketch for Launchpad. So yeah, think about what you might want to paint in the cosmos, and we are going to have a great time. Okay, thanks. See you later. Bye.